Alrighty, hey there, your Health Nation. It's Ashley. We're here live to do our weekly training session for this week. So hopefully your week's been off to a great start. I know it's already Thursday, so that means there's one more day to go. So super excited about that. So we hit the weekend. Hopefully, if you're in any of the areas where it's been snowing, hopefully you guys have stayed safe and maybe actually get some time to enjoy it this weekend if that's your thing. I know it's not everybody's thing. For me, I like it, and unfortunately, where I am in Atlanta, we don't get a lot of snow, so we don't get to. If I want to go play in the snow, I have to go somewhere to do that. But so if that's your thing, hopefully you guys get to enjoy it this weekend. If not, hopefully you get to do something else you enjoy. So today we're going to be focusing on physical movement. And before we jump into that, I want to cover a couple of key points, many of which you probably are aware of, but I want to make sure that the importance of physical movement and why we need it is understood. And so in order to do that, I have to touch upon obesity a little bit here. So obviously, obesity is a growing epidemic in our nation, and it's something that I feel incredibly strongly about as far as it's in most cases, and I granted everybody's health conditions are, their own, but in most cases, it's completely preventable. And I view it as something that there's a multiple layers here as far as what is the path forward to correct this. Obviously, there's societal implications that need to be addressed. But also, I think a key aspect of obesity is our own individual choices. And part of that comes from awareness. And that's one of my big things that I love to talk about is helping people create that awareness. Um, and then obviously find solutions because, awareness is great, but if you don't have a solution, it's not going to do you any good. So, obesity is a growing epidemic in our nation. More than a third of U.S. adults, it's close to about 40% of U.S. adults are obese. So, in the simplest terms, when we're talking about this, obesity is excessive fat that accumulates in the body and it impairs health. It has a wide range of medical complications, which is why, to me, it's so fundamental to address this. And it's something that we should be focusing on, in the here and now, but also in the go forward. It can cause things such as pulmonary diseases, um, cancer, strokes, gallbladder, heart disease, diabetes. All of these things are significantly more likely to happen if you are obese. And that's why, to me, it's so important to address this. Um, and so, when we're talking about fighting obesity, how are we going to address this epidemic? There's certain risk factors, obviously, for each person. And each one of us has, different levels of all these combined, which therefore is our overall risk. So some of them are non-modifiable. There's things we just can't change, like your age. You can't change that. You can't change any hereditary issues that predispose you to having obesity. Ethnicity and race also we're finding play a huge role in this. And culture, what environment do you grow up in as far as what you see around you? And then your metabolism. That's something that is not easily changed, if at all. So that's where knowing that we can't change certain factors, but that means we have to really, really focus on the things we can change. And there's actually several things that are under our control. The two main ones, and these are the ones that I think individually and societally we really need to focus on, are physical activity, and then obviously the amount of calories we consume, and then what are those calories comprised of? If you're eating nothing but Big Macs, that's a problem for many different reasons, and if you're not getting enough exercise or physical activity. And means that really when it comes down to fighting the obesity epidemic, the change really starts with us. And as I said just a moment ago, that change doesn't get to be started until we create awareness. We need to have this awareness in order to, and then understand what the solutions are for the go forward. Um, so this is the other big issue is as you get older, your body undergoes natural changes that underscore, it starts to deteriorate. Many people don't realize exactly when this starts, but it actually starts in your 20s and 30s. You start losing lean muscle mass, and the rate of bone building starts to slow. The natural process of our bones when we're younger, and actually throughout our entire life, is in order to create new bone cells to keep your bones strong, your body's continually making them. But also, they're taking away the cells that are no longer helpful and that are basically old and deteriorating. When we're younger and we're growing, the rate of new bone cells being created is significantly higher than obviously bone cells being taken away, reabsorbed, however you want to term it. And then eventually it starts to even out, where it's about an even rate of that. And then, I mean, at that point, we stop growing taller, um, and our bone structure basically maintains. But once we hit our 20s and 30s, this is where the bone building part starts to slow down. But the bone deterioration, where it's absorbing those old cells, if you will, maintains about the same. So this is where it starts to become concerning, because that's when your bones start weakening. This is why it's so important to have, level of fitness or physical activity that helps support good bone strength. So when you hit your 40s and 50s, this is when things really start to change within our body. The loss of muscle mass and bone building rate further decrease. Hormonal changes, especially for women associated with menopause, accelerate this whole process. So this is why for women it's so important they do strength training exercises, even weight-bearing exercises. It doesn't even have to be with weights, but just push-ups, walking, things like that are so important. Your body fat percentage starts to climb, just because, you know, we're not usually as active, the way our body starts processing things, that causes your body fat to go up. Your blood vessels naturally become stiffer as you age, which obviously impacts your cardiovascular system. It becomes harder to maintain your balance when you get older. Many people, obviously over the age of 50, start having issues with osteoarthritis, which inhibits your, range of motion and your ability to move. So then we get to when you're 60 and older, and bone health becomes so important because the breakdown of bone increases significantly while the building of bone continues to drop. So this obviously increases your chances of having these things like if you fall, you can easily break bones and such. So as you can see, we've got obviously just the natural occurring of how your body progresses as you age. There's certain processes that take place. Now, on top of that, you add the whole obesity component and all of the different health conditions it can cause or precipitate. Then we're starting to see all these problems that we're starting to see now. And as far as the number of people who have all these different health conditions and how it's obviously impacting their daily lives. So, which brings me to the whole concept of obviously everybody stresses the idea of exercise. And while I'm a huge proponent of exercise, uh, it's not everybody's cup of tea. And so this is according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, that performing physical activity on a regular basis will help improve overall health and fitness and will decrease the risk for many chronic diseases. So this is where it's trying to differentiate between physical activity and exercise because they're not the same thing. And so this is why I want to talk about physical movement. That's the point of today's training session, is not focusing on exercise, but focusing on what is physical activity. So physical activity is any movement of the body that requires energy expenditure. So this can include any motion that you're doing throughout the day that's not sitting and not lying down. So it can't be either of those two things. Um, Physical activity is carried out by the muscles. You're moving around of some form. And basically, it's any movement that you're doing. It can occur during leisure time, obviously, if you're getting to and from work or other places, or as part of your job. Your physical activity is all encompassing, essentially. Exercise is a type of physical activity. So keep in mind that exercise is always physical activity, but physical activity is not always exercise. Exercise is a planned, structured, and repetitive activity for the purpose of improving or maintaining physical fitness. And fitness is the goal of exercise. So, and you want to improve the health and efficiency of various systems in your body. And that's what the whole point of exercise is you're trying to do that. Physical activity doesn't have that intention when you're doing that. That's why it's so important to understand the difference. That, yes, while exercise is physical activity, it is not obviously, uh, physical activity is not exercise. And obviously, within exercise, you've got different subsets. You know, you've got cardiovascular exercise, which is any type of exercise that challenges your heart and vascular system by causing your heart to pump faster and increase oxygenation to the tissues. So, and this is where obviously you can really start branching down and get really detailed, which I'm not going to do today because that's not the point of today's training session. So when it comes to physical activity, just regular everyday stuff, we're not talking about exercise. We're actually just talking about, you know, you're getting up and moving. This can be like laundry, it can be vacuuming, it can be gardening, you name it, anything like that. So the benefits of this is that it reduces the risk for cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, certain cancers, and other chronic health conditions. It also can help with weight control, strengthens your bones and muscles, improves your mental health, and your mood and energy levels, and overall, you're going to have a better quality of life, right? Um, so this is where it's so important to understand because more and more evidence that we're seeing, thanks to you know, the increasing number of people who spend a lot of time sitting, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. But more and more evidence is showing that sedentary behavior is associated with increases all causes of mortality of any type and increases in obviously cardiovascular disease, cancer, and type 2 diabetes. So the whole concept here is sitting essentially is incredibly bad for us. As human beings, we were not designed to sit. And so we're designed to be up and moving. And when you think about, you know, the ancient hunter-gatherer societies, they weren't really sitting because they couldn't. They had to be up and moving in order to be able to survive. They had to find food, they had to do other tasks and such like that. So this is where the latest research is suggesting that how much time we spend sitting could be just as important as how much time we spend exercising. So and this is where if people have the incorrect belief as far as that they exercise, so therefore they're in good health. Um, a new term has been coined to describe those people who exercise most days of the week. You know, they get their heart rate up, they're moving, they're pumping blood, all that stuff. But otherwise, they spend the majority of their days being sedentary, whether it's because of work or leisure activities that they choose to participate in. And so the term to describe these folks is active couch potatoes. So basically, as I was saying a moment ago, an active couch potato is someone who's inactive for the majority of their day, but regularly makes sure to get 30 minutes of exercise at least on most days. So this is where it doesn't necessarily mean that this person is lazy. It just means that they spend most of their time sitting, whether, as I said, it's for leisure activities, for work, while eating meals. So while the 30 minutes of exercise is absolutely beneficial and helpful for your health, it's the everything that's comprising the rest of the day that we're finding is actually very hazardous to our health. And so this is why the idea of our sedentary lifestyles that we have now is becoming more and more clear of how detrimental that is to our health, despite even if you exercise. So according to the World Health Organization, globally, mind you, this is on a broad scale here, 1 in 4 adults, or 1.4 billion adults, do not meet the global recommended levels of physical activity. And up to 5 million deaths a year could be averted if the global population was more active. And that's just crazy to me that 5 million people a year die because they're not active enough. And that's where, to me, this is such a huge problem, but it's something that can be addressed. It's just needs to be focused on more than it has been. Um, and so the researchers are trying to look into why. Why are we more sedentary now than we were, before? Um, and it's got a lot to do with the type of activities we're doing for obviously work. A lot of people now work on computers, so they're sitting at a desk the majority of their day. And then when they go home, the type of activities that they participate in, whether it's watching TV, using electronics, something along those lines, is, it requires, it's just a lot of sitting. And before that wasn't, able to be done. People had more labor intensive jobs. When you'd go home, you'd actually have to do chores and do things. People would have to go mow the lawn and actually push the lawnmower rather than ride the lawnmower. We didn't have garage door openers that were electronic, so you'd actually have to get out of your car, go open the door, pull your car in, and get out and shut the door, versus now we just push a button and it's all done for us. And so as we're seeing that we're increasing all these modern conveniences essentially, that we're seeing less and less activity. Um, so the big thing here that many people or experts are stressing is that some physical activity is better than none. So you want to try to replace sedentary time with physical activity of any intensity. This is key. Even light intensity activity provides some benefit over sitting. And this is going to help reduce many of those detrimental effects of sitting. So the more activity you can incorporate into your day, the better. This is the whole thing. And so if you're trying to figure out, is an activity physical activity, is it exercise? There's a couple of questions to ask yourself. And one of them is, am I doing this because I'm trying to improve my physical fitness or health? And then the second one is, do I plan to do this consistently from week to week or even day to day? And so when you're considering the answers to those two questions, you want to take into mind, if the answer to one or both of them is no, then that particular activity is not really considered exercise. And it's truly the concept of physical activity, physical movement. If you answered yes to both of those questions, then it's most likely considered exercise. And so this is where, you, by having that understanding, I mean, obviously, if you're running, then presumably that's going to be exercise because you're going to have a structured plan for that. However, if you're doing laundry or you're doing other household chores, yes, while they're done every week, you don't have a specific, set time in order to do it. And it's not designed to improve your overall health, right? The sense of planning that. Obviously, if you're actually up and doing it, then yes, you're not sitting, so it's going to improve your health. But the big thing is there are countless opportunities to increase your level of daily physical activity. You just have to look for it. And the easy way is to be more active, stand more, sit less. So a good thing to start your day with is 10 minutes of gentle yoga stretching. That's gets your body moving, gets things loosened up. That's awesome. If you work at a desk all day, try to create a workstation that requires you to stand. So like standing desks. If you can't get a standing desk, create your own. Use a box, something, whatever, to raise your computer's monitor, screen, all that up high enough so that way you're actually standing and working. This is going to create more movement. You're going to be moving around more just because you're not sitting. Um, Big thing, take the stairs. A lot of people will take the elevator, they take the escalator. It's like, stairs are important because it actually gets your heart rate up, because obviously it's not just walking level. And you're also engaging the muscles in your lower body in a way that you wouldn't if you didn't take the stairs. Park your car further away when you're going to the grocery store or running errands. Rather than, trying to find the closest parking spot, wasting however much time, park further away and use that time to actually walk into the building. Obviously, you also have to walk back out, so that's even better, right? Um, then, or if you work or live in a city that has a subway or you have to take a bus, get off a stop or two prior to your normal stop and then walk the rest of the way. I mean, that's a simple, easy way to be able to get some extra, physical movement in. Um, make a point of going for a walk. And this can be, if you're at work, start a walking club. So instead of eating lunch at your desk or, sitting in a break room with your friends and coworkers, encourage them to join you to come outside and go for a walk or walk around the office, whatever it is that gets you up and moving so you're not sitting. It breaks up your day as well. And then also try to be creative as far as including walks before or after work. I know for me personally, this is something that I do when I'm working. If, I have my time that I leave for to get to work in the morning, and if I happen to get there early because traffic wasn't too bad, I'll actually get out of my car and walk around the building, however many times that I've got until I have to be inside for work. On my lunch break, rather than sitting and eating lunch and taking it, doing that, it's not saying I don't eat, but I'll take that 30 minutes and actually walk around the building. Because A, it gets me outside, which I know for my own mental health, that's important. But also, I'm physically moving. Mind you, even when I'm at work, I don't sit that much, but still, it's different. It's an actual continued effort, and then when it comes to household chores, rather than picking one day a week to do everything and cram it all in on the weekend, try to break it up. Do dusting or something one day, vacuuming another day, whatever else you do a different day. And then, you can also listen to upbeat music while you're doing housework, yard work, whatever it is you're doing. Usually this is going to get you, motivated without even really thinking about it. You're going to be moving more, you're going to increase your heart rate, and it's just going to be awesome. Um, and most likely you're going to get your chores done faster, so double bonus. And then when you're engaging with technology, and this is a big one because this is something we all do a lot of, is make sure that you try to be creative in thinking about ways that you can move. So some simple things here is you can keep a yoga mat, resistant ball, resistant bands, something in your living room where they're easily accessible. So that way you can use them while watching TV. Or if you don't have any of that stuff, while watching TV, march in place, stretch, or repeatedly, sit and stand and do different things. If you have cans of soup in your cupboard, you can get up and use those for resistance. I mean, you just have to be creative and come up with ways to use what you already have to make yourself more active. Um, and then when it comes to like leisure activities, obviously, typically most people have activities that they like where they're active and they usually do them on the weekend. Well, try to start incorporating those during the week. It doesn't have to be as long, but try to do a little bit each day. When you're planning vacations, plan active ones. So instead of taking a bus tour, walk around on foot. Um, and then trying to choose activities that not only you enjoy, but that allow you to spend time with family and friends. And that way, it's a double benefit for you because you're getting the physical activity, but you're also getting that engagement that is so important and the socialization that we all need. And also, good news is you're helping them be more active too. So it's a benefit for them as well. Just the key thing is you have to stick with it. You have to do it daily. It has to be consistent. And you have to, obviously, as I was saying before, it's the awareness. You got to be aware of the idea that you just need to be move more and then get creative in how to do that. The more you do it, it's gonna be easier to do, number one. And then number two, you're gonna obviously start to feel the improvement. Maybe you don't notice it physically, but obviously that's gonna take longer time. But you're just going to feel better. And that is something that I think is so uh, key in all this is, obviously you want to feel good. You want to be able to feel like you're able to participate in the things you enjoy doing. And you want to feel like you're, headed towards a good health situation. And the only way to do that is by taking consistent action every day that is going to get you to a more positive place. So, I know that was a lot of material we sort of went over here. But I think is a big thing to remember, key takeaways out of all this, is that physical activity is not exercise. It's something that you can do every day. You just have to be creative in incorporating it into your life and be consistent with doing it. So if you take away nothing else other than what I just said in the last 30 seconds, take that away from this. And I think you'll truly start noticing a difference. Um, hopefully you guys found this to be helpful. If you have questions, if you have comments, put them below. Send me a message. I'd love to hear from you guys. If you have specific topics you want me to talk about, reach out and I will incorporate it into my Facebook Live training schedule. So that way you guys are learning about what you want to learn about. But otherwise, until next week, when we get together again, make sure you take your time to start incorporating this, enjoy your weekend, and you guys stay healthy.